There are trees, there is snow, and I am lost. It doesn't matter how I got here. All that matters is survival. So, I slowly press on through the eerie silence of the forest, doing my best to shut the cold out of my mind. No one is going to save me but myself. My eyes are fixed on the frigid white desert in front of my feet when a shadow fits across my vision, nearly making me stumble. I look up. Could this be a reason to hope? A distant airplane or a rescue helicopter? No, it's just another raven. It joins the others who have already gathered, all of them staring down at me from the surrounding tree limbs. They are watching in complete silence, as if captivated by the drama of my situation. This is their secret theater, and their favorite new actor is giving a spellbinding performance. I lower my head, blow on my fingers, then lift one weary foot to take a step, then another, and another, and another, until the process of moving forward on numbed feet becomes automatic and my mind starts to wander. Smart birds, ravens. I remember someone once telling me they have another name. What was it again? Wolf birds, wasn't it? Yes, that's right. Wolf birds, because of the way they sometimes track wolves. Ravens will patiently follow along from above, then swoop down after the wolves make their kill, eager to share the carcass. Suddenly, my thoughts are interrupted as the ravens take to the air in a flurry of black wings and snow, as if they have all come to a silent agreement that this particular drama has become boring. Once more I pause, wondering if they found something more interesting to watch. But no, they just keep circling overhead as I stare up at them. Soon, however, I hear growls. Growls that are very close and coming closer. In this moment, it dawns on me that if ravens are such smart birds, they might not always be satisfied with following along behind wolves. Sometimes they might let the wolves know what they want to eat. It's 7:31 p.m. and I'm the last person in the office. But instead of leaving, I'm standing in front of the elevator with a box of paper clips in my hand. Ready to go? Asks Ray. He's keeping the elevator door open for me. Behind him are Megan, Carla, and Marcos, all of whom look tired from working so late. The first time this happened, I opened my mouth to say yes. Then I suddenly changed my answer as I remembered my resolution to lose a few pounds. Back then I said, "Thanks, but I'll take the stairs." This time I don't say anything. "Suit yourself," Ray says anyway, as if I had spoken. He releases the door, but before it can close, I toss in the box. It lands on its corner and the lid pops off, scattering its contents like a paperclip grenade. Then the door slides shut and I'm alone again. No one in the elevator thought this was weird. In fact, they didn't even notice. I've done this little experiment many times, so I'm not surprised they didn't react. I'm also not surprised to look over and see the box of paper clips back on my desk, as if I'd never touched it. My other experiments end the same way. I've blocked the doors, I've shouted and begged, and I've grabbed at Ray's arm, but nothing makes any lasting difference. My coworkers never respond, and everything resets. I always end up alone in the office, at least until the elevator reappears and Ray asks if I'm ready to go. I've gotten tired of experimenting, but there isn't much else to do around here. The phones and radios and fire alarms don't work. All the computers are frozen. I found a cheap romance novel hidden in Megan's bottom drawer, but I know how it ends. I ought to. I've only read it 30 times. Even if I actually do take the stairwell, it's like walking into an M.C. Escher print. However many flights I descend or ascend, every door brings me right back here to the 30th floor. Of course, I could always join my coworkers in the elevator. I remember once when I was a kid, I was feeling morbidly curious, so I looked up elevator accidents and found out they were incredibly rare. Elevators are probably the safest method of transportation in the world, since they basically cannot just go crashing to the ground. You're about 1,000 times more likely to die on a staircase. But even though I know that, I also know this. Each time the elevator leaves, if I put my ear to the door, I can hear the receding screams of my coworkers echoing back up the shaft. And that's why it's always 7:31 p.m. Because I'm supposed to be with them. Looking up from the paperclip box, I see the elevator has returned. Ready to go? Asks Ray. Eventually, I know I'll say yes. It takes about 8 minutes for light from the sun to reach Earth. That's because the distances between things in space are huge. For example, did you know that when the moon is as far from the Earth as its orbit allows, you can fit all the planets in the solar system in between it and the Earth? Crazy, huh? The sun looks so close sometimes. Sometimes it almost seems like you can close your eyes, stretch your arm toward its warmth, and dip your fingers in. But that's impossible, of course. Now more than ever. Anyway, this delay in light meant that when we noticed that Pluto was missing, the thing that had taken it was already at Neptune. I've heard that the government has ways of tracking it as it moves throughout our solar system, doing something to the planets, but I don't know for sure because they won't tell us anything. That's okay though, because like I said, light from the sun takes around 8 minutes to reach Earth. So, a few seconds ago, when that thing opened its jaws and swallowed the sun, we knew that it was already on its way here. A copious collection of creepy creatures by Dr. Redsnom Icarb. Gather round, everyone, and I'll spin you a tale of monsters, demons, and giant things that wail, with a friendly tone that will have you all beaming, with descriptions of monsters that will leave you all screaming. First up is a talented, demonic clown, quick with a joke to help when you're down. His face may be mutilated, but he tells jokes well. He'll have you dying of laughter as he drags you to hell. Next is a nurse with an obsession with helping. From within her workplace, you'll never hear yelling. Not a patient complains after they've had a checkup, due to the fact that their mouths are sewn up. Next up is an animal that loves to play. It swims in the ocean and eats every day. It has been described as a living black hole, 'cause sometimes for fun it swallows whales whole. Then there's that most wonderful toy that is perfect for any child, girl or boy. The parents won't mind. In fact, they'll be enthralled when naughty children are replaced with look-alike dolls. Coming up after is a small worm-like thing that's slimy and scaly and as thin as a string. It crawls through your skin and gives you spots. Then it crawls in your ear and eats your thoughts. Finally, there's the being known only as the Brace, who has 1 arm, 10 legs, and no face. He can be as tall as a building and as quick as a fox, as strong as the world and as deadly as smallpox. He'll hunt you down, no matter how far you get. He'll pull off your limbs and keep you as a pet. He masquerades as a human and is usually a bore, until he turns into a monster when he's done these steps 4. 1. He makes terrible monsters to kill, maim, and roam. 2. He writes about his squalid creations in his dark and dreary home. 3. He collects all his writings into 1 short rhyming tome. 4. He makes a victim of whosoever reads his poem. My marriage has hit a bit of a rough patch, and both my wife and I are equally to blame. Long days at the office, working overtime means I haven't been spending enough time with her, and she's been sleeping with my best friend. Well, ex-best friend. My wife wanted to go on a trip to the cabin we rent in the countryside. You know, give our relationship another chance, and while I was hesitant at first, I eventually agreed. Well, the whole trip turned out to be a bust. We were to spend a whole week down here, and 6 days into the thing, we've done nothing but argue. On the last day, I woke up to a strange smell. I got out of bed to investigate, and sure enough, there was my wife in the kitchen cooking breakfast. When she saw me, she gave me a big smile and said, "Sit down, honey, I made your favorite, scrambled eggs." This distressed me greatly, because while scrambled eggs were indeed my favorite, I was still shocked to see my wife making it, for a couple reasons. 1. There weren't any eggs in the house when we got here, and we didn't bring any either. 2. During our 5 years of marriage, my wife has never acted in a manner that would suggest that she would even be somewhat proficient at boiling water, much less scrambling eggs. 3. Just yesterday night, I, while passionately but steadily whispering the word whore, had smashed my wife's head in to such an extent that it resembled the centerpiece of one of those postmodern art shows that she frequently attended in the brief moments when she wasn't fucking my ex-best friend. So I couldn't help but wonder, what the hell was in my kitchen and what was it cooking? Ever wake up so late that you freak out immediately? Then you spend the morning rushing around, desperately trying to get to work or school, but so much crazy stuff keeps happening that you only get more and more behind schedule, and no matter how hard you try to get caught up, you feel like you're running on a treadmill, and then you wake up for real. That's what I kept expecting to happen on October 32nd. It was the morning after Halloween, and everything seemed normal. I woke up on time, but as I sipped my coffee, I noticed something strange in the foyer. The bowl of Halloween candy was full. "That's crazy," I said. I was positive I'd given out all the candy on the night before. Unless someone had broken in and reverse trick-or-treated me, the bowl couldn't be full. But as mystifying as it was, I had to finish getting ready for work. A few minutes later, when I checked up on the world via my phone, I nearly choked on my toothpaste. All the news articles were the same as yesterday. All my messages too. Finally, I noticed the date. It was October 31st again. It felt surreal. Had I completely dreamed up the previous day? None of my memories had the hazy qualities of dreams, but it seemed the likeliest explanation. Of course, I soon discovered I was wrong. Everyone in town had the same story. Most people shrugged it off, but when October 31st came again the next day, no one was shrugging. We began to keep track. October 32nd became the 33rd, then the 34th, and so on. It's been 2 years now, but technically every day is October 31st. Meanwhile, the air shimmers at the edge of town, forming an impassable barrier. We're trapped in a bubble of the past, and the world outside has apparently forgotten us. It's not even a true time loop, because not everything resets. People have died, supplies are running low, and food is scarce. Except for the candy. The candy always resets. From what we can tell, the children here loved Halloween so much they wanted it to be every day, and somehow their wish came true. They claim they don't know how to fix things, but I'm not sure they would if they could. They still go trick-or-treating every night. They are still growing, though. At first, we thought this was good, and October would finally end once they started maturing. Then, last night, a different thought struck me. If the children's love for Halloween led to this, what will happen when they're old enough to embrace the scarier side of the holiday? Last night was also the first time I saw monstrous shapes lumbering through the darkness outside, just beyond the edge of my vision. And this morning there was a bloody axe in my yard. So far, Halloween has been about candy and costumes, but not for much longer. Lately, I've been hearing strange noises around the house. I didn't know what to make of it. I'd be lying on my bed when all of a sudden I'd hear a faint sound seemingly coming from all around me. First, I considered the possibility of rats in the walls, but I decided that the sound was too infrequent. In any case, I didn't want any exterminator poking around my home. At one point, I even thought that the house was haunted. I'm usually more rational than that, but I've been watching a lot of horror movies recently, and they must have gotten to me more than I thought. I'm not too proud to admit that for a couple of days, I was seeing ghosts in every shadow. It wasn't ghosts, of course. It wasn't even the house. It turned out that my daughter had been laying on the basement steps and screaming. The basement was mostly padded, of course, but when she put her mouth through the cracks of the door, I could barely hear it. I was relieved when I found out it was only her, but I couldn't help but wonder how she'd gotten the stitches out of her mouth without her hands. Julia waited patiently for her father. He had promised to stop by on his way home from work to pick her up something to eat. Today was a Thursday though, and Julia knew her father stayed late to catch up on work on Thursdays. So she waited. After a while, Julia began to worry. It seemed like Daddy was taking longer than usual. Of course, she didn't have a clock in her room, and Daddy had boarded up all the windows, so she had no way of knowing for sure. Julia tried to calm down, but her 11-year-old mind was going through all the terrible things that might have befallen her father. As more time passed, Julia wondered if her father was staying away on purpose, as a punishment for her screaming at him the other day. If it was a punishment, then Julia knew she deserved it. It was how it had always been. Months ago, when Daddy had woken her up in the middle of the night, touching her in weird ways and telling her how much she looked like her long-gone mother, Julia had attacked him in a fit of rage. She tried to make it up to him the next day, but all Daddy said was that he finally saw her for the unholy temptress that she was and punished her for being bad by shackling her to her bed. He had boarded up the windows after the nice mailman had seen her through one of them and had tried to break into the house. Daddy had killed him in front of Julia to show her the consequences of her actions. Julia pressed her face into her sheets and started to cry as her hunger and the memories of her past sins overwhelmed her. If only her father were here, she would apologize to him and promise not to seduce men anymore. Her ears perked up as she heard the front door open. She lifted her head up and wiped her tears as she heard heavy footsteps sound throughout the house. Might it be? But no. As the door swung open, she took in the sight of two tall men dressed in dark blue uniforms. They looked like the kind of people Daddy had told her to avoid, but as she looked at the two males, Julia felt her previous teary-eyed resolutions fade. She slowly lifted her blood-stained sundress over her head and beckoned to the two strangers. The closest one, who was talking frantically into a radio, suddenly stopped and walked over to her with a glazed look in his eyes. As he caressed her, Julia pulled his face close to hers and started running her jagged teeth against the strange man's neck. As she bit down, Julia knew she was being a bad girl and that Daddy wouldn't approve. But she couldn't help it, she thought, as his lifeblood flowed into her open mouth. She was so hungry. I have always lived in this house. It's not very big, but it's home. This little house is where my children are, where we worship God together and wait for Him to take us into His eternal home. I love the decor, the furniture, the wallpaper, all except for the green room. That's where the stairs up are, and I just generally avoid the place. Once every 2 weeks, though, I have to go in. I must blindfold myself, take the stairs up into the bright room, hold my shaking hands out, and hope it's her there, not him. It's a 50-50 shot, really. If he's there, I subjected to whatever horrific games he wants to play. My body doesn't belong to me anymore. I separate myself from it and let him have his way. If it's her, I get a large crate of foods and drinks to take down to my house to share with my 4 children. I can only tell who it is behind the blindfold by their voices. They both greet me almost always the same way. If I hear his gruff, "Where's my girl?" I know I'm in for it. If I hear her melodiously melancholy, "Hello, dear," I know I'm safe. The last time I went up, a week and a half ago, she greeted me in her classic way. I smiled to her, hoping she could tell I meant it, despite not being able to see my eyes. But when she handed me the box, she grabbed my wrist and whispered, "In the bottom of the box is a bottle. In that bottle are pills. If you ever hear someone else, if they ever come for us, you know what to do." Of course, I know. And I did know. I have to protect myself. I have to protect my children. I know what men are capable of, and if they come, I will do whatever is necessary. And thank God she gave me those pills. She must have known they were coming. I have pushed all the furniture I can against the door that leads from the green room into our den. I cuddle my children close, each of us taking our little red pills with a sip of what's left of our water. I kiss each of my precious babies, my little joys, as the pounding on the door grows louder and my head starts to swim. A man shouts from the other side, "Open up! This is the police! Please remain calm. We have Howard and Betsy Turner in custody. We're here to help you. Take you outside. You're safe now." I can feel everything getting old. My children have stopped moving, stopped crying. We must be close to God's big house now. I'm so glad the woman gave us those pills, kept us safe. I don't know what the police is or who Howard and Betsy are, but I do know one thing. Never trust a man. It's in the dustiest books that you may find the best stories.